let's do a quick video on what has happened in Estonia a couple of days ago. I wanted to make this video originally on Sunday, tweeted about it, but due to some circumstances, I could not get to it until today. So let's start off with this one here. This is the official map by the Estonian Ministry of Defense. It shows the supposed infraction into the Estonian airspace. We are very convinced that this is roughly what happened for various indications. But for those not familiar to the area, let's just quickly look at what we see here. This big area, not so big actually, 150 times 150 miles approximately is Estonia. And this here, on the right side here, this is Russia. This down here is Pskov, which is actually the headquarters of the Russian Airborne that were so famously destroyed in various convoys in the war in Ukraine in the first 3 days. So this is Russia. This is Estonia. This is NATO country. Below that, hardly visible on the map down here, is Latvia, another NATO country. And up here, as you can see here, this is Finland. And here, this is Russia, and due to the 12-mile zone logic, this is an internationally agreed, so to say, or passageway for international shipping and air traffic. So this is considered international airspace and waters, despite it being closer to the sovereign zones of Finland and Estonia. So this corridor in the middle is the international part, and all these here are local areas. Why is that important for Russia, you may ask? Because actually they need to go here to be able to reach the Russian enclave of temporarily occupied Kaliningrad. I will show that in a bigger map later. What we have on this map here is the Russian flight path crossing into Estonian airspace, and as the Russians later said, it was not Estonian but Russian airspace. Historically, this is important to notice because until 1991 or 2, I think, Estonia was part of the Soviet Union. It was occupied territory. So that's a flashback for the people as to why they really don't like the Russians. Now let's look at where NATO is, because that's not on this map here. NATO is approximately here, as Estonia does not have an air force. The Estonians have a NATO mission that switches around every couple of months. Right now it's an Italian mission there with F-35s. And this is called Amari Air Base. It's approximately here. I've already pre-located it here. So this is the airbase location. Complete. As you can see down here. This is the location of the airbase. And not much detail to be seen on Google Maps, of course, but it's just a very standard airfield that is basically used by NATO missions. We don't see anything here. It has been cleared, but you can see the typical fighter jet parking position with the taxiing marks. So with that said, this is the airfield here, right? And as we zoom out bigger, you can see its location. It's approximately here. And so the Russians, to go to Kaliningrad down here, they basically need to fly down this corridor that you have, you don't see on this map, and down here to the Baltic Sea into Kaliningrad, to their temporarily occupied German territory down here. And so they basically need to get around Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania to be able to access this. This is why this corridor up here is important for Russia. Now, we have the airbase here that we pointed out, but for this scenario that we're looking at, we actually have to consider a bunch more things. So what does Estonia have in this area? They do have radars. And with that, I'll switch over to CMO to actually look at what we're doing in this scenario. And we are seeing various radars here, like an AN TPS-77 radar down here. And there's a radar on station, like on the base, that's not so important. Then we have some groundmaster radars and such down here. And for the completeness of this scenario, I basically added the relevant radars and the Baltics, and also some in Finland, as you can see down here. Now, you may ask yourself, apologies, is this accurate? And we'll just switch to a topographic map here. And you can see there is the village of Rakvere. I'll go to Rakvere here on Google Maps. We can see that down there, there's this road, Rakvere. We can see if that's somewhere here. There it is. And as you can see here, we have in a forest northwest of Rakvere, we have this TPS-77 radar. And, well, it needs to load. Give it a second. There we go. As you can see on the map tiles loading here, sorry, it always takes a bit. There is actually a military site on the map here, because this is like a real-time loading map, so it's sometimes a bit laggy. And if we go to Google Maps, we can actually take a look here, and we will see that there is precisely what we have here. There's a radar down here, right? Let me zoom in again. You can see this little road here. There's a little windy road, another road. This is exactly what we have here, the little village. And there is the radar station next to that forest. That's exactly what we have here, right? Next to each other. So that's the accuracy that we're working with here. It will be similar if we go down here to the area of however you call it. Love Estonia, but leave me alone with the language. Where are you? Okay. So I got one. Rural. Isn't that comedy right now? How I'm unable to find something that I put on the map. So let's go. Touch to Volvo. Touch to. Must be here, Volvo. Okay, we got it. So we need to look at near here, somewhere in Volvo. There, from lake, road, from the main road. Let's try to be smart here. So there is a lake. There we go. Can it be in this road? Let's just see how I'm clueless about what I'm doing, but it's still accurate. And there is there it is. All right. And there we can already see the radar site. So as you can see, I've really tried to be precise here about the radars, because the radars that we have here are actually being simulated accurately. And so we want to have this very precisely onto where they are and what they do. And as you can see here on the topographic map, this is actually 600 feet elevation in a very flat country. So this is done to have the radar visibility and the radar horizon. So with that said, we have all of these radars that are relevant here, simulated. We have some airbase here. It was never said where they came from. And now I will switch back. So you can see here we have the switch to remove the clutter on the map. So instead of having individual radars, we will just group them as Estonia radar sites when not seeing them. Makes it easier for us. The same thing here with the map. There is the radar on site. Let's ignore that, okay? So this is the situation. We don't know the precise time, so I went with the 0900 Zulu. And let's just take it off, presumably similarly to how it went down. So what we're seeing here right now there's a typical, well, not typical, but it's how I chose to present it. Let's say a radar overview picture of the situation. And we are seeing here there is a Japan Airlines 47 on a certain trajectory and a certain altitude, 777 300 ER. It's a civilian plane. And that's why it's green. And there is another Airbus civilian plane. As you know, the insane amount of civilian planes flying. I just made some to give you the impression of what you have to look at in the situation. So even here we can see Aeroflot Russian commercial flights. Yeah, they are also civilian, right? So this is what we have here. And for completion's sake, as it's known that this was present in the area, there is an E3 sentry from the Incursion Air Base down here, also present over Poland doing some circles and whatnot. And that's basically the situation. As you can see here, while it's not going to be able to see those MiG-31s, but for completeness sake, and if somebody comes up with the question, that plane is here, and it's going to transmit. And the reason why that's important is, I mentioned before, that this is all simulated. So there is track 24 and 25, as we can also see from here. The aircraft tracked bogey 23, 24, and 25, the three MiG-31s. And when we click on them, we can see that we have an unknown air contact at a certain course, speed, and altitude. And we can see the units from our side that are able to detect them. And as we can see, quite a lot of these radars here, this one here in Finland, some of the Estonian radars are able to pick up this this flight of MiG-31s as bogey, while the civilian flights are identified and everything. So let's kick off the time acceleration a bit. And as we can see here, we have the representation of the sovereign borders visible. Now, we don't know anything about the flight course over Russian territory, so I just basically made it up on the go. Let's accelerate, and we can see there's a trace. The Japan Airlines 777 has landed. I know these are not 100% accurate from the departure and takeoff times. It doesn't add anything to this. I just wanted to, give some color and context. So here we have a flight coming back. I think it was from Copenhagen. There is one going to London. So this is what we have here, right? And now let's look at what's happening here. We have these guys here. We are still at 15x time acceleration, flying there. And while they fly, we can take a look at the airfield in Mali, and we can see that they're already the Cure from 32nd to Stormo are already taking off with the typical loadout of 4 MRAMs entirely internal. Well, let's proceed and actually do something that is also going to be conductive to, let's say, those who don't like 2D maps. Let's put this one here. This is basically a 3D overlay on what we're seeing. And we can click on these bogies. Should be visible here as soon as it picks up. Well, we don't have anything here. Okay, there we go. So we have those visible. That's a bit big, but I'll move it here. And now we can see what's going on. So these, let's go to 15x. So let's just pause it for a second. So these F-35s here at the flight name is auto-chosen. Griffin 10 is the name here. They basically took off, as you can see, with afterburners and everything. Let's actually just play on 1x. And they took off, and as you can see by this Like this, let's say this area here that is now yellow, this shows the radars that they turn on, and then the red circle is the maximum range of the missiles. So what they have done is they've immediately turned on the radar with one purpose here in this scenario. That is to identify these planes, because the F-35 is a very advanced radar. So they can do this NCTR, which is non-cooperative target recognition. They basically taking a long-range picture with the radar that shows the radar exactly what the plane looks like. And they can then, the radar looks into the database, and it will then identify this as a MiG-31 Foxhound. And this is what happened here. Not sure if the Italians did that, because they also have this electro-optical system. So they could have also not used the radar. We can actually also turn the radars off. Oh, can we not? Where's the pop-up for this? Maybe this window precludes it, I'm sorry. Yeah, I cannot adjust this while the radar here is, while the 3D window is there. Let me just pause it for a second. There, I can turn off the radar. Okay, there we go. So now the radar is off. And if I continue the simulation here, we can see that the radar that we had before, the AESA radar, is no longer there. But from the F-35s, the so-called EOTS is already taken over. So they're using this very highly sophisticated infrared system on the F-35 to track and identify the targets. So that really doesn't make a material difference in this scenario here. And we can see here that these F-35s are moving there at very high speeds for an F-35 with over Mach 1.5. They are basically flying there and approaching these MiG-31 Foxhounds here that are flying here in formation over Estonian territory. And as we can see, there is a very high rate of closure on these. And basically, let's just accelerate a bit. A whole lot of nothing happens, right? Who knows, they're going to chase them a bit. They're probably going to get into position and whatever. Whatever jet fighters do, we don't know anything about this in detail, what happened. They were basically just chasing them all the way. And that's basically what went down. We can see here there's a trigger that's unfriendly because it's in Estonia, but nothing happens. And there we go. And at some point, the Russians leave the airspace. Let's just let us. And nothing happens, basically. And at some point, the Russians will probably have turned around and nothing burger. And that's basically what we have, right? So that's basically what happened. Most likely, they would just have gone here, gone back. Nothing happened, except them having crossed lines by being in Estonian airspace with armed fighter planes that have not really reacted to Estonian reactions. Now, with that said, how would that day have looked like if the new robust NATO opinion had manifested itself? So let's just run it a bit. As you can see here, everything is as it had been before. But now let's make a quick change here. I will turn on the God's Eye view. The reason for that will be apparent soon. The 3D window thingy that we had before is a lot better with God's Eye view, because then it has all the information. Let's do that. There we go. So now we have very close formation. Okay, but this is all, as you can see, it's all not according to scale, but we have this very high pace movement at almost 50,000 feet of the 30-second stormal. Approximately, let's look at the distance quickly. Yeah. 60, 70 miles right now. We can just click here. We can see those Foxhounds. We can see the course that I pre-plotted for them because we have this all information on, and we can see here, this is where they changed the course down to go to Estonia. So now it's going to get a bit more juicy as compared to the previous video. We are flying here. I'm at very strong intercept course, just like before. But now we will have a more robust attitude, and also below that you can see here the shape. This is where Tallinn is. So they would actually intercept over Tallinn supersonically and proceed towards the Foxhounds. And the Foxhounds will have their thing. And now we assume that they do exactly like they do. Ignore interception commands, ignore the warnings, and remember how it took Turkey 17 seconds to shoot down Russian airplanes just crossing into Turkish airspace. So let's see what happens here. They're about to cross into Estonian airspace. Our two Italian aviators in their Fred A-knees are still moving at significant speed towards these three Russians. They also have the identical loadout, by the way. Let me just pause here. When we look at this, we can actually see the loadout, and there are 3 Archers. So 3 AA-11 Archer, the unusual loadout that was spotted, was also present on these planes. So they have exactly as shown on the photos, the same loadout. Now let's proceed, because we can see there is a certain ambiguity still going on there at the border area. The Italians are moving at extremely high pace. Here at real time, by the way, you can see how fast the Italians are moving. There we go. Oh, look. The Russians are now considered hostile. And what happened? Immediately, we see 2 MRAMs, 3 MRAMs, not 2, go off, aim 120Ds. And as you can see, they're moving up, but it's a short shot. So they are actually descending immediately. The Russians are braking. Almost Mach 5 for these MRAMs. And they are still burning. But bam, 1 down, 2 down, and there is the 3rd. And he was able to evade the MRAM, but that was going to be met with another MRAM, as the Italian fighter jets have 8. He is shooting an Archer in this instance for self-defense. That's an interesting one. And yeah, we can see he is down, and we are seeing these lightnings move off into a direction as it's here engaging defensively, so doing a so-called crank maneuver when they're trying to deplete the energy of the missile. And as we can see here, it has missed for whatever reasons. Everything here is calculated. It has tried to flare it, and that is basically the conclusion of this scenario. As you can see here, the F-35s are status RTB, returning to base. And that's what they're doing. And this is the scenario. And now we can look at the results of this. It's very simple. The Italians have shot 4 MRAMs. They have killed 3 Foxhounds, and the Russians have shot 1 Archer. And that's it, basically. That's hopefully going to be the future approach, as Russia is very intent on trying to find out if NATO is willing to act on their reckless behavior. Now, with that said, one more thing that I would like to share. Everyone is talking about how a certain country is defending their airspace. And to be honest, that's annoying. NATO is having an integrated air defense system. And the integrated NATO air defense system covers from the North Cape all the way down to Turkey. Here, So this is the NATO air defense border, basically. It's a very long border, and it's an integrated air defense system. Dozens of nations. And so even if the Italians are flying over Tallinn, let me show you one thing. It's actually public information. There is the Combat Air Operations Center in Germany. There's another one in Spain that does all the air policing matter in Northern Europe. Above the Alps, including Baltic air policing, says public information. Right? So everything above this line here is done from this site here. I will show it to you. Clear. There. This site. This is referenced here, and I have a different picture that is a bit nicer. I'm not going to tell you from which public source it is, because I actually noticed them already, notified them that it's too good. This is how it looks like. This is the NATO Air Defense Command for Northern Europe, and also for the Baltics. And as you can see here, this is the nice building that they have there on the web page with the little spire from glass. And this here, you can see it here. So this shot here, for those who love the geolocation, the square was shot from here. So this is where it was shot towards the spire, but they have not shown on the page. Of course, this here, where you have the air defense bunker, or one of the air defense bunkers there, you can assume that there is more hardened presence underneath. Of here is an entrance, second, third entrance, and there's another fourth entrance here. This is not classified information. It's just information nobody will put in your face. I'm going to do that now, but the Russians already know it. So then NATO puts it on the web page. But no, so here is where the decisions are made, not somewhere in Estonia, who doesn't have an air force, blah, blah, whatever news you have. And the other side is down here in Tarragona. But let's not get into all the details. So that's basically the situation. If you have any questions, drop me a comment. Thank you.